The cabin sits at 7,800 feet in the Bitterroot Range, where Montana bleeds into Idaho and the world narrows to rock, pine, and silence. Most mornings, the quiet is so complete as weight, pressing against your chest until you remember to breathe. Elena Cordova has lived here for 12 years, the last 3 entirely alone except for the wolf. She's 58 now, though the mountain ages you differently than city life does. Her hands are scarred from decades of splitting wood and hauling water. Her hair, once black as river stone, has gone silver at the temples, pulled back in a braid that hangs between her shoulder blades. She moves with the economy of someone who learned not to waste energy on unnecessary motion, every gesture deliberate, efficient. The cabin itself is small but solid. Her grandfather built it in 1947, logs hand-hewn and chinked with mortar that needs replacing every few years. The roof is corrugated metal, angled steep to shed the heavy snows that bury this place from November through April. A stone chimney rises through the center, smoke curling into the pale morning sky. The windows are small, double-paned, shuttered on the outside against winter storms. Before we continue, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story is touching you already, make sure you're subscribed. I've got something extra special saved for tomorrow. Elena wakes before dawn, as she has every day for more years than she can count. The fire in the wood stove has burned down to coals. She builds it back up, adding kindling first, then split pine, adjusting the damper until flames catch properly. The cabin warms slowly, heat radiating from the iron stove that dominates the main room. Coffee comes next. She fills an enamel pot with water from the bucket by the door, adds grounds, sets it on the stove. While it heats, she stands at the window, watching the ridge line emerge from darkness. The mountains reveal themselves gradually, layers of shadow becoming distinct peaks, purple giving way to gray, then finally the warm gold of sunrise touching the highest points. This is her routine. Unchanging, predictable, safe. She checks the weather, reads the sky like her grandfather taught her. Clear today, cold, maybe down into the teens overnight. She'll need to bring in more firewood. Check the propane tank. Make sure the water line to the spring hasn't frozen. The wolf stirs by the stove, a massive dark shape unfolding from sleep. Shadow. She named him that 3 years ago when he appeared, half-starved and limping, at her door. He's enormous now, nearly 150 pounds, black as midnight with amber eyes that miss nothing. He stretches, yawns, pads over to press his cold nose against her hand. "Morning, boy," she murmurs, scratching behind his ears. His tail wags once, slow and deliberate. Shadow has been her only companion since Marcus died. Her husband, partner for 29 years. Gone 3 years now to a cancer that hollowed him out slowly, giving him time to say goodbye, but not enough time to say everything that mattered. They'd built their life here together. Marcus had been a geologist, drawn to these mountains by their ancient bones, the layers of rock that told stories millions of years old. He'd spend weeks mapping formations, collecting samples, filling notebooks with observations and theories. Elena had been his anchor, the practical one who kept him fed and warm while he chased understanding. They'd never had children, not by choice. Her body simply wouldn't carry a pregnancy to term. 3 times they'd tried. 3 times she'd lost a baby before the 2nd trimester. After the 3rd, they stopped trying. The grief had been enormous, oceanic, but they'd survived it together, built a different kind of family around each other, around this place, around the mountain itself. When Marcus died, Elena thought she might leave. The cabin held too many memories. His tools still hanging in the shed, his rock samples lining the shelves, his handwriting in the margins of field guides. But she couldn't make herself go. This place was all she had left of him, and leaving felt like abandonment. So she stayed, learned to survive alone. The first year was brutal. Grief made everything harder, made simple tasks feel impossible. But the mountain demanded attention. You stayed warm or you froze. You found food or you went hungry. You paid attention or you died. There was a clarity to it that gradually, painfully, helped her heal. Shadow had appeared during that first winter alone. She'd found him caught in an illegal trap on Forest Service land. his right hind leg broken, half mad with pain and starvation. Any sensible person would have put him down. Wolves are protected, but a wounded predator was dangerous. But Elena had looked into his eyes and recognized something, a will to survive that matched her own desperate need to keep going. She tranquilized him with medication from her emergency kit, reset the leg as best she could, splinted it with aluminum strips and gauze. She built a cage in the shed and kept him there through that first brutal month, feeding him venison and elk, changing his dressings, talking to him in the low, steady voice Marcus had used with injured animals. By spring, the leg had healed crooked but functional. She'd opened the cage door, expecting him to vanish into the forest. Instead, he'd circled the cabin twice, testing the perimeter, then settled on the porch. He'd been with her ever since. Shadow hunts his own food mostly, disappearing for days at a time, returning to sleep by the stove or on the porch. He's never howled, never made much sound beyond the occasional huff or whine. Elena has read that wolves are social animals, that they howl to communicate with their pack. Shadow has no pack. Maybe he's decided howling alone is pointless. She's named him after her father, Sombra, Shadow in Spanish, a man who raised her after her mother died, who taught her to track, to read weather, to survive. The wolf seems to suit the name. Silent, watchful, steady. Her daily routine is simple, honed by years of necessity. In winter, she checks her trap line, a 6-mile circuit through the forest. In summer, she tends her small garden, forage constantly, mushrooms, wild onions, berries, medicinal herbs. She hunts when she needs meat, fishes at high lakes in season. She preserves everything, dries herbs, skins vegetables, smokes fish and venison. Once a month, weather permitting, she makes the trip down to Silverbrook, the nearest town, 23 miles of winding mountain road. She loads her old Ford pickup with whatever she has to trade, tanned hides, dried herbs, smoked trout, and drives down. She buys supplies, flour, salt, sugar, coffee, ammunition, propane. She picks up mail at the post office, exchanges brief pleasantries with people who knew Marcus, and drives back up. The townspeople respect her mostly. They call her the Mountain Woman, with a mixture of admiration and unease. A few of the old-timers remember Marcus, ask how she's managing. She tells them fine, thanks him for asking, leaves it at that. She doesn't mind the solitude. People require energy she no longer wants to spend. Up here, life is direct, honest. The mountain doesn't lie, doesn't make promises it can't keep. You earn your survival every single day. But sometimes in the depth of winter when the snow is too heavy to travel and the cabin feels smaller than it is, she finds herself talking to Marcus's ghost, telling him about her day, asking his opinion on some repair, watching the sunset together the way they used to. She knows it's not entirely healthy, knows she's probably going a little strange the way hermits do, but it comforts her, so she allows it. Shadow is different. He doesn't judge, doesn't require conversation. He simply exists beside her, a warm presence, a reminder that she's not entirely alone. That had been her life for 3 years. Predictable, manageable, hers, until the night shadow started scratching at the cellar wall. Section 2, the catalyst, inciting incident. The scratching starts on a Thursday night in late February. Elena is reading by lamplight, one of Marcus's old geology journals, when Shadow suddenly stands. His ears prick forward, his body goes rigid, and he stares at the floor. The cabin has a small root cellar accessed by a trapdoor in the kitchen floor. Marcus dug it himself years ago, lined it with stone, used it to store potatoes, carrots, canned goods. Elena still uses it, though she hasn't been down there in weeks. No need. She's well stocked for winter. Shadow crosses to the trapdoor and begins to scratch at the wood, his claws scraping rhythmically. The sound is urgent, insistent. What is it, boy? Elena sets down the journal, frowning. Shadow doesn't look at her. He scratches harder, whining low in his throat. His tail is down, not wagging, not relaxed. He's focused entirely on whatever lies beneath. Elena's first thought is mice. Maybe a family of them has gotten into the cellar, nesting in the stored burlap sacks. Shadow has always been a good mouser, but he's never been this fixated before. She stands, crosses the trapdoor, and pulls it open. Cool, earthy air rises from below. The cellar is dark, just a 6-foot square room carved into the rocky soil, accessed by a short wooden ladder. She grabs her flashlight, clicks it on, shines the beam down. Nothing moves. The shelves are lined with mason jars, pickles, beans, tomatoes. Sacks of potatoes sit in the corner. Everything looks normal, undisturbed. See, she says to Shadow. Nothing there. But Shadow isn't convinced. He descends a ladder before she can stop him, his claws clicking against the wooden rungs. He lands on the dirt floor and immediately goes to the back wall, the one that butts up against the natural rock of the mountain. He scratches at the stone, whining, pawing frantically. Elena's stomach tightens. This isn't normal behavior. Shadow is calm, measured. She's never seen him this agitated. She climbs down the ladder, crouching in the low-ceiling space. The flashlight beam sweeps across the wall Shadow is obsessing over. It looks like solid rock, the same granite that forms the foundation of the entire mountain. Nothing unusual. Nothing that should attract a wolf's attention. Shadow enough. She tries to pull him back, but he resists, digging harder. That's when she hears it. A hollow sound. Not the solid thud of rock meeting claw, but something lighter, emptier, like there's space behind the wall. Her breath catches. She kneels beside Shadow, pressing her hand against the stone. It's cold, rough, but when she knocks against it with her knuckles, the sound echoes faintly. There's a cavity behind this wall, a void where there shouldn't be one. Her mind races. Marcus had been a geologist. He'd know about rock formations, about caves and fissures. Had he known about this? Had he deliberately built the cellar against a natural cavity? She runs her fingers along the rock face, searching for seams, for any indication of an opening. Shadow continues to scratch, focused on one particular spot about 3 feet up from the floor. Elena shines a flashlight directly at that point, and there, barely visible beneath decades of dust and mineral deposits, is a straight line, too straight to be natural, carved, deliberate. Her pulse quickens. She grabs a screwdriver from her tool belt, always worn out habit, and begins scraping away the accumulation. The line becomes clearer, revealing itself as the edge of something fitted into the rock. Not a door exactly, but a panel, a section of stone that doesn't quite match the surrounding wall. She works methodically, clearing the edges until the full outline emerges. A rectangle, roughly 2 feet by 3 feet, set flush into the rock face. There are no visible hinges, no handles, but along one edge, she finds indentations. Finger holds, maybe, or places where something could be inserted to pry it loose. Shadow backs away slightly, watching her with those unblinking amber eyes. His tail wags once, slow and deliberate, as if to say, I told you. Elena sits back on her heels, heart hammering. What is this? Why is it here? And why did Marcus never mention it? She thinks about the years they spent in this cabin, the conversations they had, the secrets they shared. Marcus had been an open book with her, or so she thought. But maybe there were things he'd kept to himself. Things he'd planned to tell her eventually, but ran out of time. Or maybe he never knew about this at all. Maybe whoever built this cabin before her grandfather, because there had been structures here before, old foundation stones scattered in the forest. Maybe they'd sealed something in this wall, something forgotten. The cold from the cellar seeps into her bones. She should stop. She close the trap door, go back to her reading, pretend this doesn't exist. But she knows herself too well. Once a question lodges in her mind, she can't let it go. Marcus used to tease her about it. Her stubborn need to understand, to know. She retrieves a pry bar from the shed, working by flashlight in the frigid night air. Shadow stays close, as if sensing the importance of what she's doing. When she returns to the cellar, she wedges the pry bar into one of the indentations and applies pressure. Nothing happens at first. The panel is sealed tight, held by decades of mineral deposits and possibly something more deliberate. She adjusts her angle, braces her feet, and pushes harder. With a grinding scrape, the panel shifts. Just an inch, but enough to confirm it's movable. Dust rains down. Shadow whines, backing toward the ladder. Elena pauses, breathing hard. Her hands are shaking. Part of her wants to stop here, to leave this sealed, to respect whatever boundary was set so long ago. But the larger part, the part that survived grief and isolation by refusing to give up on questions, won't let her walk away. She pushes again. The panel slides another inch. Then another. Cold air rushes out from the gap, carrying a smell that makes her stomach clench. Earth, yes, but also something metallic, like old coins, like blood. With one final shove, the panel comes free entirely, falling inward with a heavy thud that echoes in the darkness beyond. Elena shines her flashlight into the opening. The beam reveals a tunnel, narrow but tall enough to crawl through, carved into the living rock. The walls are smooth, worked by human hands, not natural erosion. The tunnel slopes downward, disappearing into blackness beyond the reach of her light. Her breath comes in shallow bursts. This isn't just a cavity. This is intentional. Built, excavated, hidden. Shadow refuses to enter. He sits at the base of the ladder, watching her with what looks like concern or warning. Elena knows she should wait until morning, should gather proper equipment, maybe even tell someone in town what she's found. But the pull of the unknown is too strong. She spent 3 years in careful, controlled routines, avoiding risk, avoiding change. This feels like the mountain offering her something beyond survival, a mystery, a purpose. She crawls into the tunnel, flashlight gripped tightly, her breathing echoing off the stone walls. The air grows colder as she descends, and the metallic smell intensifies. After 20 feet, the tunnel opens into a larger space. Elena emerges into a chamber, and her breath stops entirely. The room is roughly 12 feet across, carved from solid granite. But it's what fills the room that makes her heart stutter. Crates, dozens of them, stacked against the walls, old but intact. Military-style wooden crates with stenciled markings she doesn't recognize. And in the center of the room, on a natural stone pedestal, sits a metal chest, tarnished but still sealed. She approaches slowly, flashlight trembling in her hand. The crates bear dates: 1942, 1943, 1944. World War II era. Her grandfather had been in the war, had come back and built this cabin. Had he known about this? Had he hidden it? She kneels beside the chest on the pedestal. It's locked, but the lock is old, corroded. She examines it carefully, then uses the pry bar to snap it free. The metal gives with a sharp crack that echoes through the chamber. Inside the chest, wrapped in oilcloth, are documents, maps, photographs, and beneath them, small canvas bags tied with cord. Elena opens one bag carefully. Gold coins spill into her palm, gleaming in the flashlight beam. Not modern coins. Old ones from before the war, some from other countries entirely. There must be hundreds of them. Thousands, maybe. Her hands shake violently. She sets the coins down and picks up one of the documents. It's a ledger, written in her grandfather's handwriting. She recognizes it from old letters he'd sent her mother. The entries list names, dates, amounts. It looks like an accounting of something, but she can't make sense of the context. One of the photographs shows her grandfather, much younger, standing with a group of men she doesn't recognize. They're in front of this very cabin. She realizes, recognizing the porch post, the angle of the roof. The men look serious, purposeful, like they're guarding something. She digs deeper into the chest. More documents, more photographs. And then, at the very bottom, a letter addressed to Elena Cordova. Her name, in her grandfather's handwriting. Her breath catches. He knew she'd find this. He'd left it for her. With trembling fingers, she unfolds the letter. The paper is yellowed brittle, but the words are clear. My dear Elena, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you found what I spent a lifetime protecting. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you while I was alive. Some secrets are too dangerous to speak aloud, even a family. During the war, I was part of a unit tasked with safeguarding assets that couldn't fall into enemy hands. What you found represents fortunes that were hidden to keep them from being stolen or destroyed. Gold, currency, art, pieces of history that would have been lost forever. After the war, most of these caches were recovered, but not all. This one was forgotten deliberately, erased from records, because the men who knew about it decided some wealth was safer buried than claimed. I was the last guardian. I built this cabin over the entrance, lived my life above the secret, and kept it sealed. I always meant to tell you, to pass this responsibility to you, but time ran out. The chamber contains approximately $250 million in assets. Gold, rare coins, bonds that have matured beyond calculation. It's yours now, Elena, but with it comes a choice. You can report this. The government will claim it, distribute it, erase any trace of its existence. You'll receive a finder's fee, perhaps, but nothing more. Or you can keep the secret. Use what you need carefully, quietly, protect the rest as I did. Because there are people, powerful people, who never stop looking for what they lost. If they discover it exists, they'll take it, and they won't care who they hurt to do so. I trust you to make the right choice. You've always been stronger than you knew. With all my love, Abuelo. Elena's vision blurs with tears. She reads the letter again, then a third time, trying to absorb the weight of what he's telling her. $250 million. Hidden beneath her cabin for nearly 80 years. Left to her by a grandfather who died when she was 19, who never got the chance to explain, who trusted she'd be wise enough to handle this burden. She looks around the chamber at the crates, at the chest, at the fortune sitting silently in the dark. Her life could change. She could leave this mountain, buy a house anywhere, live in comfort, never worry about money again. But her grandfather's warning echoes in her mind. There are people who never stop looking. Shadow barks from the tunnel entrance, sharp and urgent. Elena's head snaps up. He never barks. Not unless there's danger. She scrambles back to the tunnel, emerging into the cellar just as Shadow races up the ladder. She follows, heart pounding, climbing into the kitchen. Shadow is at the window, growling low and continuous. Elena kills a lamp, plunging the cabin into darkness. She moves to the window beside him and peers out into the night. Headlights, 2 sets, moving slowly up the access road toward her cabin. Vehicles that have no business being here at this hour, in this weather. Someone knows. Somehow, impossibly, someone knows what she's just found. And they're coming for it. Section 3. The first reveal mystery deepens. Elena's mind races. She hasn't told anyone about the chamber. She's been down there less than an hour. It's impossible that word could have spread. But the vehicles keep coming, grinding up the snow-packed road with deliberate purpose. Shadow's growl deepens, his hackles raised. Elena moves quickly through the darkened cabin, muscle memory guiding her. She secures the heavy wooden bar across the front door, checks that the shutters are latched from inside. Her grandfather built this place to withstand harsh winters, but also, she realizes now with sudden clarity, to be defended. The headlights stop about 50 yards from the cabin, just beyond the tree line. The engine's cut off. Silence settles, thick and waiting. Elena retrieves Marcus's rifle from above the door, checks that it's loaded. She's not an expert marksman, but she knows how to use it. Marcus made sure that years ago. Insisted she learn. Said you never knew what the mountain might throw at you. Now she understands. He must have known about the chamber. Must have found her grandfather's letter or discovered the panel himself. He'd never mentioned it, but he prepared her without explaining why. For figures emerge from the vehicles, silhouettes against the snow. They move with military precision, spreading out, surrounding the cabin. Not random visitors, not lost tourists. These are professionals. One of them calls out, voice carrying clearly in the cold air. Mrs. Cordova, we know you're inside. We need to talk to you about something you've recently discovered. Elena's stomach clenches. How do they know? How could they possibly know? She doesn't respond. Her grandfather's letter flashes through her mind. There are people who never stop looking. We're not here to hurt you, the voice continues. We just need to verify something. Then we'll leave. You have our word. Shadow snarls, a sound so primal it raises the hair on Elena's arms. He doesn't believe them. Neither does she. She moves to a different window, keeping low, trying to assess the situation. For people, at least, maybe more in the vehicles. All of them armed, She can see weapons outlined against the snow. They position themselves at the cardinal points around her cabin, cutting off easy escape routes. Her mind catalogs her options. She has food, water, firewood. She can hold out for days if necessary. But the road to town is blocked by their vehicles, and she has no phone line up here, no cell signal. She's alone, except she's not. She has Shadow, and she has something they want desperately enough to come for it in the middle of a winter night. One of the figures approaches the cabin, hands raised in a gesture of peace. Female, Elena realizes, watching the gate, the build. The woman stops at the base of the porch steps. Mrs. Cordova, my name is Dr. Sarah Chun. I'm with the Department of Defense, Historical Assets Recovery Division. We've been monitoring seismic activity in this region, and we detected significant vibrations from your property approximately 90 minutes ago. Vibrations consistent with the opening of a sealed chamber. Elena's blood runs cold. They were monitoring, waiting for someone to find it, to break the seal, to trigger whatever sensors had been left behind. She led them straight here. Dr. Chin continues, voice measured and calm. We believe you discovered a cache that was classified during World War II. That cache remains government property. Mrs. Cordova, we need to secure it before the wrong people find out it's been opened. Who's looking for it? Elena calls back, her voice steady despite the fear churning in her gut. A pause. Then Dr. Chin responds. Private collectors, foreign governments, criminal organizations, people who spent decades searching for assets that disappeared during the war. The vibration signature you triggered, it didn't just alert us. It went out on frequencies that certain groups have been monitoring for 80 years. Elena's hands tighten on the rifle. How long do I have? Before they get here? Maybe 12 hours. Maybe less if they mobilize quickly. Dr. Chun takes another step closer. Please, Mrs. Cordova, let us secure the site. We can protect you and preserve what you found. But we need to act now. Elena wants to believe her. The woman sounds reasonable, professional, but her grandfather's letter warned her. You can report this. The government will claim it. She'd lose everything. The gold, the coins, the documents. Her grandfather's legacy. Her chance at a different life. And maybe that would be the smart thing to do. Let the government take it. Accept whatever finder's fee they offer. Go back to her simple life. Safe. Predictable. But something in her rebels. She spent 3 years surviving, not living. 3 years going through motions, tending routines, avoiding risk. The discovery beneath her cabin feels like a door opening, like the mountain offering her a choice. She can hand over the fortune and stay small, or she can fight for what's hers and face whatever comes. Shadow presses against her leg, warm and solid. She looks down at him, at those amber eyes that have seen her through the darkest years of her life. He's not backing down. He's ready to defend this place, this discovery, her. Elena makes her decision. I need time to think, she calls out. Come back in the morning. We can discuss this in daylight. Dr. Chin shakes her head. We don't have until morning, Mrs. Cordova. Neither do you. Then you have a problem, Elena says, because I'm not opening this door until I'm ready. She can see Dr. Chen's frustration, even from this distance. The shift in posture, the way she turns to confer with the others. They'd expected cooperation, expected an elderly woman living alone to be grateful for their help. They don't know her, don't know that she survived things that would have broken softer people, don't know that she spent years learning the mountain's lessons about survival. One of the other figures approaches Dr. Chun, speaks in a low voice Elena can't hear. An argument ensues, brief but tense. Then Dr. Chin turns back to the cabin. Mrs. Cordova, we're going to post a perimeter for your protection. But we need you to understand, other parties will come, and they won't be as patient as we are. The 4 figures retreat to their vehicles. Lights stay on, engines idling. They're settling in for a siege. Elena moves away from the window, her heart still racing. She descends back into the cellar, Shadow following reluctantly. She crawls through the tunnel into the chamber, her flashlight revealing the fortune she'd found less than 2 hours ago. $250 million. Maybe more. Enough to change everything. She examines the crates more carefully now. Most are marked with codes she doesn't understand, but a few have inventory lists tacked to their sides. Gold bullion, currency from 6 different countries, bonds issued by banks that no longer exist, jewelry, artwork, rare manuscripts. The full scope of it staggers her. Her grandfather had spent his entire life sitting on this treasure, never touching it, never speaking of it. He died in a modest house in town, working as a mechanic until his body gave out. He could have lived like a king, but he'd chosen poverty and silence instead. Why? She picks up another document from the chest, this one a newspaper clipping from 1946. The headline reads, "Missing War Assets Declared Lost, Government Concludes Search." The article details how various caches of gold and currency hidden during the war were never recovered, presumed destroyed or stolen by enemy forces. The government had written them off, closed the investigations, moved on, but her grandfather had known better. He'd kept the secret because revealing it would have meant questions he couldn't answer, investigations that would expose operations that needed to stay buried. Elena returns the letter, reads the final lines again. "I trust you to make the right choice." What is the right choice? Turn it over to the government and lose everything? Try to hide it and risk discovery? Use it and potentially draw the attention of people far more dangerous than Dr. Chin? Shadow barks again from the tunnel, urgent and sharp. Elena scrambles back up, emerging into the cabin just as she hears vehicles approaching from a different direction. Not the government team. These are coming from the east, from the old logging road that most people think is impassable in winter. Her stomach drops. Dr. Chin was right. Others are coming. Elena extinguishes her flashlight and moves to the eastern window. 3 trucks, heavy-duty 4-wheel drives, grinding through the snow. They stop at the tree line, keeping distance from the government vehicles on the western approach. 2 groups, both after the same thing, and she's caught in the middle. Shadow paces frantically, whining. He can sense the danger multiplying. Elena's mind races through scenarios, options, escape routes. She could try to run, head deeper into the mountains on foot, but it's winter, and she wouldn't survive more than a day or 2 without supplies. And she'd be abandoning everything, her home, the fortune, her grandfather's legacy. A voice crackles from outside, amplified by a bullhorn. "Dr. Chun, this is Marcus Volkov. I believe we're here for the same reason." Elena's breath catches on the name. Not Chen's people. Someone else. Someone who knew about the chamber, who'd been waiting for it to be opened, just like the government had. Dr. Chen emerges from her vehicle, speaks calmly but loudly enough for Elena to hear. "Mr. Volkov, this is a federal matter. You need to leave immediately." Volkov's laugh carries across the snowy clearing. "Federal? You have no jurisdiction here. The assets in that chamber were never officially recovered. That makes them finders keepers. I believe the expression goes. Those assets belong to the United States government. Prove it. Show me documentation that the specific cache was ever reported to your superiors. Show me anything that gives you legal claim." Volkov's voice drips with confidence. "You can't, because your predecessors erased this location from the records. They wanted it to stay lost. So legally, morally, it belongs to whoever finds it first." Elena realizes with sinking dread that Volkov is right. Her grandfather's letter confirmed it. This cache had been deliberately forgotten, erased from official records. The government couldn't claim it without revealing operations they'd spent 80 years concealing, which means this isn't going to be resolved by lawyers or paperwork. This is going to be resolved by whoever's willing to use the most force. Dr. Chin must reach the same conclusion. Elena watches through the window as Chun retreats to her vehicle, conferring urgently with her team. They're outnumbered, outgunned, and in a legal gray area that strips them of official authority. Volkov's voice booms again. "Mrs. Cordova, I know you can hear me. I'm prepared to make you a very generous offer. 20% of the total value. That's $50 million. Give or take. All you have to do is let my team secure the chamber, and you walk away wealthier than you ever imagined." 50 million. The number is absurd, impossible process. Elena has lived on less than $15,000 a year for the past decade. $50 million would be more money than she could spend in 10 lifetimes. But it's not hers to sell. Not really. It belonged to her grandfather, who trusted her to protect it, not profit from it. Shadow growls continuously now, moving between windows, tracking the positions of both groups. Elena can see more figures emerging from Volkov's trucks. At least 8 of them, all armed with rifles and what look like night vision equipment. This is escalating fast. Soon it won't matter what she decides. Soon they'll force entry, and she'll have no choice but to surrender or fight, unless she can find a third option. She descends back into the cellar one more time, moving quickly through the tunnel into the chamber. Her flashlight sweeps across the crates, the chests, the fortune her grandfather spent a lifetime protecting. Then she sees it. Something she'd missed before in her initial shock. A second tunnel, partially hidden behind the largest stack of crates. Narrow, barely wide enough for one person, sloping upward instead of down. An escape route. Her grandfather would have built one. He was too careful not to. Elena pulls the crates aside with strength born from adrenaline. The tunnel entrance is real, carved into the rock, leading where? She doesn't know, but it's a chance. She grabs what she can carry. Her grandfather's letter, a handful of the gold coins, the documents that might explain the full story. She wraps them in oilcloth, shoves them into her pack. The rest will have to stay. For now, she crawls back up to the cabin. Shadow waits, tense and ready. Elena makes a decision. She can't defend this place against 2 armed groups, but she can disappear, can take what matters most and vanish into the mountain that's protected her for 12 years. She'll come back for the rest. Once things calm down, once she figures out how to claim what's hers without getting killed in the process. But right now, survival comes first. Elena gathers supplies quickly. Food, water, emergency gear, Marcus's rifle, ammunition. She dresses in layers, her warmest coat, insulated boots. Shadow watches her, understanding dawning in those intelligent eyes. They're leaving. Outside, voices rise in argument. Volkov and Chun, both realizing time is running out, both preparing to make a move. Elena returns to the cellar, crawls through the chamber, enters the escape tunnel with Shadow right behind her. The passage is tight, claustrophobic, but it climbs steadily upward. Her flashlight beam shows rough-hewn walls, the marks of pickaxes from decades ago. After what feels like an eternity, but is probably only 10 minutes, the tunnel opens into the night air. Elena emerges on the northern slope of the ridge, a quarter mile from her cabin, hidden by dense pines and boulders. She can see the lights below, the vehicles, the armed figures converging on her home. Parher breaks watching it. That cabin holds everything she has left of Marcus, of her grandfather, of the life she built. But she's not dead yet. And as long as she's alive, she can fight back, can find a way to reclaim what's hers, can honor her grandfather's trust. Shadow presses against her leg. She puts her hand on his head, drawing strength from his presence. "Come on, boy," she whispers. "We're not done. Not even close." Together, they move deeper into forest, into the mountain darkness, carrying secrets worth $250 million and a determination that burns brighter than fear. Behind them, the cabin is breached. Shouts echo across the snow. The battle for her grandfather's fortune has begun. But Elena Cordova is no longer there to watch. She's become what the mountain taught her to be: a survivor, a fighter, and a woman who refuses to surrender what's rightfully hers. Elena moves through the forest with Shadow at her side, every sense heightened by adrenaline and fear. The temperature has dropped into the single digits, her breath crystallizing in the air. Behind her, the sounds of the cabin being ransacked echo through the trees. Boots on wood, furniture overturned, angry voices when they discover the chamber is empty of its most valuable items. She'd taken the documents, the letter, enough gold coins to prove what she'd found. The rest remains hidden in the chamber, but it won't stay secret long. Both groups will inventory everything, photograph it, begin the process of claiming it. She has maybe 24 hours before this becomes an official incident, before more people get involved, before her chance to reclaim any of it disappears entirely. The escape tunnel had been brilliant on her grandfather's part. It emerges nearly a quarter mile from the cabin, concealed by an outcropping of granite that looks completely natural unless you know what you're looking for. Elena covers the entrance with deadfall and snow, making it as invisible as possible. Then she moves. She knows these mountains better than anyone. Every ridge, every deer trail, every shelter. Mark has spent years mapping the geological formations, and she'd accompanied him on hundreds of those expeditions. That knowledge is her advantage now. Her destination is clear. The old ranger station, abandoned since the 90s when the Forest Service consolidated operations. It's 5 miles northwest, perched on a rocky ledge that overlooks 3 valleys. It's isolated, defensible, and most importantly, it has something she desperately needs, an old radio system that might still work. The hike takes 3 hours through deep snow and darkness. Shadow breaks trail ahead of her, his powerful shoulders pushing through drifts that would exhaust her in minutes. Her lungs burn in the thin, cold air. Her face goes numb despite the scarf wrapped around it. But she doesn't stop. Can't stop. By the time she reaches the ranger station, dawn is breaking pink and gold across the eastern peaks. The building is half collapsed, one wall caving from heavy snow years ago, but the main room remains intact, sheltered from the worst of the weather. Elena forces the door open, disturbing a family of mice that scatter into the walls. The interior smells of mold and rot, but it's shelter. She immediately sets about building a fire in the old potbelly stove, her fingers clumsy with cold. Shadow collapses near the growing warmth, steam rising from his dark fur. Once feeling returns to her hands, Elena examines the radio equipment. It's ancient vacuum tubes and dials, covered in dust and mouse droppings. But her grandfather had been a radio operator during the war. He'd taught her the basics when she was young, said every person living in isolation should know how to call for help. She spends an hour cleaning connections, checking wiring, praying the system still has power from the solar panels on the roof. When she finally throws a switch, nothing happens. Her heart sinks. Then, faintly, a hum. The tubes begin to glow orange. It works. Elena spins the dial carefully, searching for frequencies. She picks up static, occasional bursts of trucker chatter from a highway 40 miles away. A weather report. Then she finds what she's looking for, an emergency services channel, one that monitors distress calls in the backcountry. She keys the microphone. This is Elena Cordova, requesting connection to the Silverbrook Sheriff's Department. I need to speak with Sheriff Tom Hendricks. This is an emergency. Static crackles. Then a voice, bored and professional. Ma'am, please use proper emergency channels. This frequency is for... Tell Tom that Elena Cordova is calling about her grandfather, Tomas Rivera. Tell him it's about the war. He'll understand. A long pause. Stand by. Elena waits, her heart hammering. Tom Hendricks is 72, been sheriff of Silverbrook for 30 years. He'd been a friend of her grandfather's, served in Korea together after the war. If anyone might know something about what Tomas Rivera protected, it would be Tom. 5 minutes pass. Then Elena, that's you? Relief floods through her. Tom, I need help. Where are you? People are saying your cabin was invaded last night. Government types and some private military contractors. What the hell is going on? My grandfather left me something. Something from the war. And now everyone wants it. Silence on the other end. Then Tom's voice lower, more serious. The cash. He actually told you about it. Elena's breath catches. You knew? Tomas never gave me details. Just said if anything ever happened, if anyone ever came looking for something buried on his property, I should trust his family to do the right thing. Not the government. Not anyone else. His family. Tom pauses. What do you need? Information. My grandfather left a letter, but it doesn't tell me everything. There are documents, inventory lists, codes I can't decipher. I need to understand what I'm protecting before I can figure out how to protect it. You still have the documents? Some of them. I grabbed what I could before I ran. Tom exhales slowly. There's someone you should talk to. Dr. Margaret Thorne. She's a historian at the University of Missoula, specializes in World War II asset recovery. Her father was part of the same unit as Tomas. She's been trying to piece together what happened to forgotten caches for 20 years. Can I trust her? Tomas trusted her father with his life. That's good enough for me. Elena writes down the information Tom provides, a phone number, an address. He promises to make contact with Dr. Thorne, to arrange a meeting, to do it quietly enough that neither the government team nor Volkov's people catch wind of it. Elena, Tom says before they disconnect, be careful. The people looking for that cache, they've been searching for 80 years. They're not going to stop just because you found it first. I know. And the government? They'll classify this into oblivion if they get their hands on it. You'll never see a dime, never get credit for the discovery. They'll make it like it never existed. I know that too. So what are you going to do? Elena looks around the abandoned ranger station, at Shadow sleeping by the fire, at the pack containing her grandfather's letter and enough gold coins to buy a small house. I'm going to finish what my grandfather started. I'm going to protect it until I can figure out how to claim it properly, legally, so it can't be taken from me. Tom chuckles, a dry sound. You sound just like Tomas, stubborn as mountain rock. He raised me well. After disconnecting, Elena spreads the documents on the dusty table, examining them by the light, filtering through the broken wall. The inventory lists are meticulous, her grandfather's careful handwriting noting every bar gold, every stack of currency, every piece of jewelry or art. The total value climbs into numbers that make her dizzy. But it's the other documents that intrigue her more. Letters between her grandfather and other men, written in a mixture of English and coded language she can't fully understand. References to the project, the Guardians, Protocol 7. One letter, dated 1963, catches her attention. Tomas, 3 of the 7 sites have been compromised. Denver, Seattle, and Boston, all recovered by the department, all classified, all erased from official records just as we feared. We're down to 4. You, me, Davidson, and Chun. They're getting closer. The monitoring equipment we agreed to install was a mistake. They've been using it to track us, to wait for the seals to break. When yours opens, and it will eventually, time takes everything. They'll know within minutes. But here's what they don't know. We changed the inventories, shifted assets between sites. What they think is in your cache isn't what's actually there. What they think is in mine is sitting in yours. If they come for you, stall them. Make them think they've found everything. But protect the second chamber. That's where the Real treasure sits. The bonds alone are worth more than all 7 original sites combined. Stay strong, brother. We kept our oath. We protected what mattered. James. Elena reads it 3 times, her mind reeling. A second chamber. Her grandfather's cache has a second chamber, and she'd only found the first one, which means the $250 million she discovered might just be the decoy. The real fortune is still hidden, still waiting to be found. She pulls out the map her grandfather had tucked into the chest, examines it more carefully. It shows a cabin, the cellar, the escape tunnel she just used. But there's another marking, faint, almost invisible unless you're looking for it. A symbol carved into the rock near the tunnel exit. She'd seen that symbol. Hadn't thought anything of it. Just another old mark left by miners or surveyors decades ago. But now, looking at the map, she realizes it a marker, a waypoint leading to something else. Shadow stirs, lifting his head. His ears swivel toward the door. Elena freezes, listening. Footsteps outside, crunching through snow. Multiple people, moving with military precision. They found her. Somehow, they tracked her here. She grabs her pack, stuffs the documents inside, douses a fire. Shadow is already at the back window, the one that overlooks a steep slope down to a creek bed. It's their only exit. The footsteps reach the door. A voice calls out, "Mrs. Cordova, this is Dr. Chun. We're not here to harm you. We just need to talk." Elena doesn't believe her. Can't afford to believe her. She climbs through the window, drops into the snow, and runs. Shadow bounds ahead, finding the easiest path down the slope. Behind them, shouts erupt as Chen's team realizes she's escaping again. But Elena has spent a lifetime in these mountains. She knows how to disappear, how to use terrain to her advantage. She leads them on a twisting path through dense pine, across frozen streams where her tracks vanish, through boulder fields where even trained trackers lose a trail. By noon, she's certain she's lost them. She holes up in a natural cave she and Marcus used to use during summer camping trips, catching her breath, letting Shadow rest. Her body aches from the exertion, from the cold, from the stress of running. But her mind is sharp, focused. She knows what she has to do now. Find the second chamber. Recover the Real treasure before either Chun or Volkov figure out it exists. Then leverage it somehow. Find a way to claim legal ownership, to protect it, to turn her grandfather's sacrifice into something meaningful. The symbol on the map is clear enough. It marks a location about 2 miles from the cabin, in a section of the mountain she's familiar with, an old copper mine long abandoned that Marcus had explored years ago looking for mineral samples. Could her grandfather have hidden the real cache there? Used the cabin's cellar as misdirection, knowing that if the chamber was ever discovered, people would assume they'd found everything? It makes sense. Perfect sense. Her grandfather had been a strategist, a careful man who thought 3 moves ahead. Of course he'd have a backup plan. Elena pulls out the radio transceiver she'd taken from the ranger station, a small handheld unit with limited range, but enough to reach Silverbrook in clear conditions. She keys it carefully. "Tom, you there?" "Static. Then I'm here." "You okay?" "For now. Did you reach Dr. Thorne?" "She's driving up from Missoula. Should be in town by tonight. I told her to meet you at the old fire lookout tower, the one above Miller's Creek. You remember it." Elena smiles despite everything. She and Marcus got engaged at that tower 29 years ago. "I remember." "Good. She'll be there at 8 tonight. Can you make it?" Elena calculates distances, terrain, risk. "I'll be there." "Elena, one more thing. Volkov's people are offering a reward. $500,000 to anyone who provides information leading to your location. People in town are talking. Not everyone's going to stay quiet." Her stomach clenches. "Understood. I'll be careful." She disconnects, shoulders her pack, and looks at Shadow. "One more hike. Boy. Then maybe we get some answers." The afternoon sun filters through the pines as they move, casting long shadows across the snow. Elena keeps to the densest forest, avoiding open areas where she'd be visible from the air. She's not sure if either Chun or Volkov has access to helicopters or drones, but she can't take the chance. As she hikes, she thinks about her grandfather. Tomas Rivera had been a quiet man, gentle with his granddaughter, but carrying something heavy inside him. She'd always assumed it was a war, the things he'd seen and done that he could never talk about. Now she understands it was more than that. It was the weight of keeping a secret so massive it could crush you if you let it. He'd lived simply, worked hard, died without fanfare. And all that time, he'd been sitting on a fortune that could have changed his life, his family's life, everything. But he'd chosen duty over comfort, honor over wealth. Elena isn't sure she's strong enough to make the same choice. The practical part of her wants to take the gold, disappear to somewhere warm and easy, live out her days in peace. But the part that's her grandfather's granddaughter knows she can't. This is her inheritance, yes, but also her responsibility. The old copper mine comes into view as the sun dips toward the western peaks. The entrance is partially collapsed, boarded over with rotting timber and warning signs. Danger, unstable structure, no trespassing. Marcus had gone inside once, years ago, documented the tunnels for a geological survey. He'd said the mine went back 300 feet, branching into multiple galleries, all of them stripped of anything valuable decades ago. But he hadn't known what to look for. Hadn't known that his wife's grandfather might have hidden a second cache inside. Elena examines the entrance carefully. The boards are old but still solid enough to keep out casual explorers. But when she looks closely, she sees marks, scratches in the wood, barely visible. That could be natural weathering or it could be something else. Her grandfather's symbol, the same one from the map, carved into the board at eye level, worn almost smooth by time and weather. Her heart rate picks up. This is it. The second chamber is inside this mine. Shadow whines, nervous. He doesn't like enclosed spaces, especially unstable ones. Elena doesn't blame him. Going into a 100-year-old copper mine alone, without proper equipment or backup, is objectively insane, but the alternative is worse. If she doesn't find the second cache, someone else will, and once they have it, she'll have no leverage, no way to negotiate, no hope of claiming any of her grandfather's legacy. She pries the boards loose carefully, creating an opening just wide enough to squeeze through. The mine exhales cold, stale air that smells of earth and metal and time. Elena clicks on her flashlight, the beam cutting through absolute darkness. "Stay here," she tells Shadow. "Guard the entrance. If anyone comes, you bark. Loud." Shadow settles unhappily near the opening, his eyes reflecting the flashlight beam. He doesn't like this plan, but he trusts her. Elena enters the mine. The tunnel is narrow, shored up with timber posts that creak ominously under the weight of the mountain above. The floor is uneven, littered with broken rock and old debris. Her footsteps echo in the confined space, making it impossible to move silently. After 50 feet, the main tunnel branches, left or right. She consults the map, trying to orient herself. Her grandfather's notations are cryptic. Third gallery, northern branch, below the copper seam. She chooses left, moving deeper into the mountain. The air grows colder, damper. Water drips somewhere in the darkness, a steady rhythm that sets her nerves on edge. The timbers are older here, more rotted. Several have collapsed entirely, forcing her to crawl through tight spaces. Just as she's beginning to think she chose wrong, the tunnel opens into a larger chamber, a natural cavity in the rock that the miners had expanded. And there, in the far wall, she sees it, a steel door, modern, completely out of place in a 100-year-old copper mine. It's sealed with combination lock, the kind used on bank vaults, still shiny and new-looking despite decades underground. Her grandfather hadn't just hidden the cache. He'd built a proper vault. Elena approaches carefully, running her fingers over the cold metal. The combination lock has 5 wheels, each numbered 0 through 9. 100,000 possible combinations. She'd never crack it by trial and error, but her grandfather would have left her a way in. He'd left a letter, the map, the symbols. He'd wanted her to find this, which means the combination must be somewhere in the documents she carried. She pulls them out, spreading them on the dusty floor, examining every page by flashlight. Numbers appear throughout, dates, inventory codes, measurements. But which ones matter? Then she sees it, her grandfather's letter to her. The date at the top, November 9th, 1998, the day she graduated college. The proudest day of his life, he'd told her. The day his granddaughter became the first in their family to earn a degree. She tries it. November 9th, 1998 becomes 11091998, but that's 8 digits, not 5. She tries variations. 11098, 19981, 98,110. Nothing works. She sits back, frustration building. Think. Her grandfather was clever, but not needlessly complicated. The combination would be something meaningful, something only family would know. Her birthday? June 14th, 1965. That's 6 digits. Her grandmother's birthday? Her mother's? The dates don't fit the 5-wheel lock. Then it hits her. Not a date. A number that means something. She looks at the letter again, at the way her grandfather signed it. With all my love, abuelo. Abuelo. Grandfather. She counts the letters. 7. Not 5. But wait. In Spanish, grandfather is also abuelito when you're young, Tata, or simply Rivera, his last name. 5 letters. Arrivire. She translates letters to numbers using their position in the alphabet. R equals 18, I equals 9, V equals 22, E equals 5. R equals 18, A equals 1. That's 6 numbers again. She tries different combinations, different patterns, growing desperate. The flashlight beam is weakening, battery dying. She needs to solve this soon or retreat, and come back with better equipment. One more try. She uses just the consonants, RVR. 18-22-18, only 3 digits. Or the vowels, IA 951, still 3. She's missing something. Some key her grandfather assumed she'd understand. Then shadow barks. Once, sharp and urgent. The signal they agreed on. Someone's coming. Elena's blood goes cold. She shoves the documents back into her pack. Stands, sweeps her flashlight around the chamber looking for another exit. There's none. The only way out is the tunnel she came through. And someone is coming down it. She can hear voices now, echoing off the rock. At least 2 people, maybe more. Moving with purpose, with lights of their own. She's trapped. Elena kills her flashlight, plunging herself into absolute darkness. Her heart hammers so hard she's certain they'll hear it. She backs against the vault door, try to make herself small, invisible. The voices grow louder. She can make out words now. Sensor triggered when she moved the boards. Told you the tracker would work. Just find her and secure the documents. Volkov wants them before Chin figures out there's a second site. Volkov's people, not the government. That's something, at least. Maybe. Flashlight beams pierce the darkness, sweeping across the chamber. Elena presses herself flat against the vault door, barely breathing. One of the beams catches her pack, forgotten on the floor where she'd been working on the combination. There! A shout. She's been here. Search every corner. Elena has maybe seconds before they find her. She can't fight them. There are at least 3, all armed. She can't run. They're blocking the only exit. But she can try the combination one more time. In the darkness, her fingers find the lock wheels. She spins them by feel, muscle memory from the numbers she's been trying. One last attempt. One last guess. Her grandfather's unit number during the war. He'd mentioned it once, years ago, in a story he told about his service. What was it? 77329. The 77th Infantry Division, 329th Infantry Regiment. No, that's too many digits again. Just the Corps, 77329, becomes 77329. 5 digits. Perfect. She spins the wheels in the darkness. 7-7-3-2-9, and holds her breath. Section 5, the deeper secret, second layer revelation. The lock clicks. It's the smallest sound, almost inaudible over the voices and footsteps echoing to the mind, but to Elena it's as loud as thunder. The vault door swings inward on well-oiled hinges, silent and smooth despite decades underground. Elena stumbles backward into the space beyond, pulling her pack with her. She grabs the door's inner handle and pulls it shut just as the first flashlight beam sweeps across where she'd been standing. Darkness. Absolute and complete. She doesn't dare turn on her flashlight yet, not until she's sure they haven't seen her enter. On the other side of the steel door, muffled voices. Her pack was here. Where the hell did she go? There's no other exit. Search the side galleries. She can't have gone far. Footsteps moving away, spreading out through the mine. Elena finally allows herself to breathe, though her heart continues hammering against her ribs. She's bought herself minutes. Maybe, when they don't find her in the mine, they'll come back to this chamber and they'll see the vault door. But for now, she has a moment. Elena risks a brief flash of light. The beam reveals a space about 10 feet square, the walls lined with the same steel as the door, unlike the chamber beneath her cabin. This one is climate-controlled somehow. She can hear the faint hum of machinery, feel air circulation that shouldn't exist this deep underground. Her grandfather had spared no expense protecting whatever's inside. The space is filled with filing cabinets, not treasure. Steel drawers labeled with codes and dates. Elena opens the nearest one, her hands shaking. Inside are bonds. Municipal bonds, corporate bonds, war bonds. Thousands of them, organized by issue date and maturity. She pulls one out, examines it by flashlight. Issued in 1943, matured in 1963, never cashed. Face value, $10,000. Current value with decades of compounded interest? She can't even calculate it. And there are thousands of these. The next cabinet contains stock certificates. Companies she recognizes, IBM, General Electric, AT&T, purchased in the 1940s when they were worth pennies, now worth, she doesn't want to think about it. The third cabinet is different. Documents, not financial instruments. She pulls them out carefully. They're personnel files, declassified military records, photographs of men in uniform. Her grandfather is in several of them, young and serious, standing with men who all share the same determined expression. One document catches her eye. It's titled Operation Enduring Trust Final Report. Classified until 2025, which was just last year. Someone had declassified this recently, or it had simply aged out of secrecy. Elena reads quickly, her flashlight beam tracking across typed pages yellow with age. In accordance with Executive Order 9417, 7 teams were established to secure high-value assets threatened by enemy advance. These assets, totaling an estimated $2.3 billion in 1945 dollars, were distributed across 7 secure locations within the continental United States. The guardians of these caches were selected from among the most trusted personnel, men with records of unwavering loyalty and discretion. They were tasked with maintaining security in perpetuity, with assets to be recovered only under specific conditions outlined in sealed orders. However, in 1946, due to changing political circumstances and the need for complete deniability, the decision was made to classify the operation beyond top secret. All records were sealed, all personnel were sworn to silence under penalty of treason, and locations were deliberately erased from official documentation. The Guardians were informed that they would protect these assets until contacted by proper authorities with correct authentication codes. That contact never came. By 1963, it became clear that the operation had been abandoned by those who authorized it. The Guardians made a collective decision. Rather than allow the assets to remain hidden indefinitely, they would redistribute them, creating a secondary layer of security. The original 7 caches were emptied and their contents redistributed to new locations, known only to the Guardians themselves. This report represents the only complete accounting of those redistributions. The new locations are... The next page lists 7 sites. Elena's breath catches when she sees the third entry. Site 3, formerly Denver, relocated to Bitterroot Range, Montana. Guardian, Tomas Rivera. Primary cache, cabin site. Secondary vault, copper mine, Gallery 7. Combined estimated value, 2023, $847 million. $847 million. Elena's hand shakes so badly she nearly drops the document. That's not a typo. That's not an error. Her grandfather had been sitting on nearly $1 billion in assets, carefully cultivated and protected for 80 years. And she's locked in a vault with it, while armed men search for her outside. A bang on the vault door makes her jump. They've found it. Mrs. Cordova. A male voice, Russian accent. One of Volkov's team. We know you're inside. The door locks from the inside, but you can't stay in there forever. You have no food, no water. Eventually you'll have to come out. He's right. The vault is secure, but it's also a prison. She has maybe 12 hours of air, less if she starts panicking and hyperventilating. But she has something they don't. Time to read through every document in this vault, to understand exactly what she's protecting, to find leverage. Mrs. Cordova. The voice continues. Mr. Volkov is prepared to negotiate. $100 million. Cash. Transfer to any account you specify. All you have to do is open this door and share the contents. You can verify the inventory, ensure you get proper value. This is a generous offer. $100 million. More money than she could spend in 100 lifetimes. Enough to buy anything, go anywhere, do anything. But it's not hers to sell. These assets were entrusted to her grandfather, and through him to her. Selling them to a private collector like Volkov will betray everything Tomas Rivera spent his life protecting. Elena doesn't respond. Instead, she continues reading through the files, absorbing information, building a complete picture of what Operation Enduring Trust actually was. It becomes clear as she reads. The assets weren't just random war loot. They were insurance. Money set aside to rebuild countries devastated by the war, to support covert operations to fund the reconstruction of Europe and Asia. But somewhere between intention and execution, the operation was buried. The people who knew about it died or retired. The money sat, forgotten, accruing value, waiting. The guardians, her grandfather and 6 others, had tried to do the right thing. They'd waited for proper authority to claim the assets. When that authority never came, they made sure the money at least couldn't be stolen or lost. They'd created this redundancy, the secondary hiding place. And now, 80 years later, it falls to Elena to decide what happens next. Another voice outside the vault, female this time. Dr. Chun, Mr. Volkov, this is a federal investigation. You need to withdraw your people immediately. This is unclaimed property on public land. Dr. Chun, I have as much right to be here as you do. You have no rights here. These assets belong to the United States government. Show me the paperwork that says so. A tense silence. Elena can imagine them staring at each other, each knowing the other is right. The legal status of these assets is impossibly murky. The government abandoned them. Volkov has no legitimate claim. And Elena, as the finder and heir to guardian, sits somewhere in the middle of a legal nightmare that could take decades to resolve, unless she finds another way. She turns to the last cabinet, the one in the back corner. Inside, she finds personal items, letters between the guardians, written in the years after the operation was abandoned. They chart a slow journey from hope to resignation to determination. One letter, dated 1985, is from a man named Chun, Dr. Sarah Chen's father. Elena realizes, Tomas, I'm dying. Cancer. The doctors give me 6 months, maybe less. I need to pass my guardianship to someone I trust. My daughter Sarah is brilliant, determined, and she knows nothing about any of this. I'm tempted to burden her with it, but I can't. This secret has defined my life, consumed it. I won't do that to her. Instead, I've made arrangements. When I die, my cash will be triggered to reveal itself to federal authorities. It will be recovered, classified, and forgotten again. But at least it won't sit uselessly in the dark. I'm breaking ranks. I know. We swore to protect these assets until the proper time. But, brother, I'm tired. And I don't think that time is ever coming. If you're reading this, I'm gone. I hope you find peace where I couldn't. James Chan. So that's why Dr. Chin is here. Her father's cash was recovered, and somehow that led her to investigate the others. She probably doesn't even know about her father's role as a guardian. She just knows that somewhere, hidden assets from the war are waiting to be found. Elena's heart aches reading these letters. Men who'd carried impossible burdens, who'd lived double lives, who'd died without recognition or reward. Her grandfather had been one of 7, and now she's the last person alive who knows the whole truth. The responsibility settles on her shoulders like physical weight. This isn't about money anymore, if it ever was. It's about honoring these men, about finishing what they started, about making sure their sacrifice means something. She gathers the most important documents, stuffs them into her pack alongside the ones she already carries. The bonds and stock certificates will have to wait. There are too many to move quickly, but she photographs the filing cabinets with her phone, capturing every label, every drawer, creating a digital inventory that proves what's here. Then she does something risky. She pulls out her phone and, despite having no signal this deep in the mine, she records a video message. My name is Elena Cordova. I'm locked in a vault in an abandoned copper mine in the Bitterroot Range, Montana. I've discovered assets totaling approximately $850 million, hidden here since World War II by my grandfather, Tomas Rivera, as part of a classified operation called Enduring Trust. She pans a camera across the filing cabinets, the documents, the bonds. These assets don't belong to me. They don't belong to the people trying to take them. They belong to the American people, to the purpose they were originally intended for. I'm recording this as proof of their existence, as insurance against anyone trying to steal or suppress this information. She pauses, gathering her thoughts. If something happens to me, if I don't make it out of this vault, this video is set to upload automatically to multiple news organizations and law enforcement agencies in 72 hours. But I'm hoping it doesn't come to that. I'm hoping there's a way to do this right, legally, with transparency and honor. She ends the recording, sets the auto-upload timer, and prays she gets self-signal before the deadline triggers. Outside the vault, the arguments continue. Elena can hear more people arriving, vehicles, voices, equipment. The mine is filling up with treasure hunters, federal agents, and God knows who else. She needs to get out of here. But how? Then she notices something she'd missed before. In the far corner of the vault, partially hidden by a filing cabinet, there's a grate in the floor. She moves the cabinet aside and finds a ventilation shaft, narrow but possibly wide enough for a person to squeeze through. Her grandfather's escape route. Of course he'd have built one. He was too careful not to. Elena pries the grate free and shines her flashlight down. The shaft drops about 15 feet, then angles sharply. She can't see where it goes, but it's moving air. She can feel the draft on her face. It's a terrible idea. The shaft could collapse, could dead end, could drop into an underground river or a 100-foot pit. But staying here is worse. She secures her pack, takes a deep breath, and lowers herself into the shaft. Section 6. The threat escalates external pressure. The ventilation shaft is barely wide enough for Elena's shoulders. She descends carefully, boots scraping against metal, pack catching on rivets. The darkness is absolute, claustrophobic. She fights down panic, focusing on one movement at a time. After 15 feet, just as her arms are beginning to shake from supporting her weight, her boots touch solid surface. The shaft angles horizontally here, following the natural geology of the mountain. Elena crawls forward on her belly, flashlight clenched between her teeth, pack dragging behind her. The metal gradually gives way to natural rock, the shaft becoming a fissure carved by ancient water. It's even tighter here, and Elena has to exhale completely to squeeze through some sections. Her breath comes in shallow gasps. The weight of the mountain presses down from above, millions of tons of rock that could shift and crush her in an instant. Just when she's certain she'll be stuck, die alone in the suffocating darkness, the fissure opens up. Elena tumbles out into a larger space, landing hard on her shoulder. Pain shoots through her arm, but nothing's broken. She lies there for a moment, gasping, letting her heart rate slow. Then she sits up and shines her light around. She's in a natural cave, one of the hundreds that honeycomb these mountains. Water trickles along one wall, carving patterns in the limestone. The air is cold but fresh. There must be an opening somewhere. Elena follows the cave for 20 minutes, winding through passages that grow gradually wider and taller. Eventually she sees it. Dim gray light filtering through a crack in a rock face. The exit. She has to climb to reach it, pulling herself up a chimney of stone that scrapes her already bruised body. But she makes it, squeezing through the opening and emerging onto mountainside. The sun is low on the horizon. She's been underground for hours, and the temperature has dropped into the low 20s. Snow is beginning to fall, fat flakes that signal a storm moving in. Elena gets her bearings. She's about a quarter mile from the mine entrance, higher up the slope, hidden by scrub pine and boulders. From here, she can see the activity below. Vehicles clustered around the mine, more arriving even as she watches. Portable lights being set up. Someone's bringing in heavy equipment, maybe planning to blast through the vault door. Shadow is nowhere in sight. Her heart clenches with worry. Had they captured him? Hurt him? Or had he fled when the situation became too dangerous? Then she hears it. A bark, distant but unmistakable. She scans a tree line and sees movement. A dark shape loping toward her through the snow. Shadow. She doesn't care if anyone hears her. Relief floods through her as the wolf reaches her, pressing his massive body against her legs, whining with what sounds like relief. She buries her face in his ruff. Good boy. Such a good boy. They can't stay here. The storm is worsening, and once Volkov's people realize she escaped the vault through the ventilation shaft, they'll search this entire area. She needs to get to the fire lookout tower, meet Dr. Thorne, figure out her next move. The hike takes 2 hours through deepening snow. Elena is exhausted, hypothermic, running on nothing but adrenaline and stubbornness. Shadow stays close, lending his warmth, his presence. Without him, she's not sure she'd make it. The fire lookout tower emerges from the storm like a ghost. Built in the 1930s by the Civilian Conservation Corps, it's a wooden structure perched on stilts, designed to give rangers a panoramic view of the forest below. It's been abandoned for decades, but the stairs still hold, and the platform at the top provides shelter from the worst of the wind. Elena climbs carefully, shadow following. At the top, she finds a figure waiting, bundled in a heavy parka, holding a thermos of what Elena prays is something hot. Mrs. Cordova? The woman is in her 50s, with sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. I'm Margaret Thorne. Tom Hendricks sent me. Elena collapses onto the bench, accepting the thermos with shaking hands. Coffee. Hot and sweet and perfect. Thank you. Dr. Thorne studies her carefully. You look like you've been through hell. Accurate assessment. Elena takes another drink, feeling warmth spread through her core. What did Tom tell you? That you found something related to Operation Enduring Trust. That you're in danger. That I should help if I can. Dr. Thorne sits across from her, pulling out a tablet. My father was part of that operation. James Chun. He never told me the details, but after he died, I found fragments, coded letters, references to guardians and caches. I've spent 20 years piecing together what happened. Elena pulls out the documents from her pack, including the operation report from the vault. This should fill in the gaps. Dr. Thorne reads in silence, her expression shifting from curiosity to shock to something like grief. When she finishes, she removes her glasses and wipes her eyes. My God, my father guarded one of these caches his entire life, died without telling anyone, and I've been working for the same department that tried to recover them, not knowing. She trails off, struggling with the revelation. He was protecting you. Elena says gently, the letter I found from him said he didn't want to burden you with this secret. Instead, he let me spend decades searching for answers he could have given me in 5 minutes. Dr. Thorne's voice is tight with emotion. Do you know how many nights I sat up wondering why he was so secretive? Why he kept files locked away? Why he made me promise never to trust the department completely? Elena lets her process, understanding that grief. She's carried her own unanswered questions about Marcus, about her grandfather, about all the things that were left unsaid. Finally, Dr. Thorne composes herself. What do you need from me? Information, legal advice, a way to claim these assets properly without getting killed or having them classified into oblivion. Dr. Thorne laughs, but there's no humor in it. That's a tall order. The legal framework for the situation doesn't really exist. These assets were technically abandoned by the government, which might make them yours under finder's laws. But they were also classified, which complicates everything. What about going public? Releasing everything to the media? You'd cause a sensation. Congressional hearings, investigations, probably 100 lawsuits from people claiming ownership. It could take decades to resolve, and you'd spend that entire time as the most famous and most hunted person in America. Dr. Thorne pauses. Is that what you want? Elena thinks about it. Fame, attention, endless legal battles. It sounds exhausting. No, I want to honor my grandfather. I want these assets to serve their original purpose, helping people, building things, making a difference. But I also want to be able to live my life without looking over my shoulder. Then you need leverage, something that makes it more valuable to work with you than against you. Like what? Dr. Thorne considers. The bonds and stocks you found, those are financial instruments. They can be liquidated, sold, transferred. But more importantly, they represent voting rights in major corporations. Depending on what exactly is in those vaults, you might own significant stakes in companies worth billions. Elena hadn't thought of that, so I could use that influence to negotiate, not just with the government, but with the companies themselves. They won't want the publicity of a court battle over 80-year-old stock certificates. They'll be motivated to settle quietly, to buy you out or bring you on board. And the government? Dr. Thorne smiles grimly. We give them what they want, discretion. We agree to keep the operation classified, to work within their framework. In exchange, they acknowledge your legal claim as heir to the guardian. It becomes a quiet settlement, buried in bureaucracy, forgotten by everyone except the people who matter. It's not perfect. It's not the dramatic vindication Elena might have fantasized about, but it's realistic. It's survivable. How do we make that happen? We need a lawyer, a very specific kind of lawyer, someone with security clearance, someone who's worked with classified asset recovery before, someone who can navigate the bureaucratic maze without triggering all the alarms. Do you know someone like that? I know exactly one person. His name is David Morrison. He's a partner at a firm in D.C. that specializes in exactly this kind of thing. His father was also part of Enduring Trust, the Boston Guardian. If anyone can help you, it's him. Elena feels a spark of hope for the first time in hours. Can you reach him? I can try. But Elena, you need to understand, even with Morrison's help, this is going to take time. Months, probably years. And in the meantime, you're still in danger. Volkov isn't going to stop just because you found a good lawyer. As if summoned by her words, Shadow's ears prick up. He stands, hackles rising, staring down the mountain. Dr. Thorne sees it too. Company? Elena moves to the edge of the platform, peers into the storm. Headlights, multiple sets, winding up the access road toward the tower. We need to leave. Now. They descend the tower quickly, Shadow leading the way into the forest. Behind them, vehicles arrive at the clearing. Voices shout. Flashlights sweep through the snow. Elena and Dr. Thorne run, staying just ahead of the search. The storm is their ally now, covering their tracks, reducing visibility. They make a half a mile before Dr. Thorne pulls Elena into a dense thicket of pine. My car is another quarter-mile south, she gasps. If we can reach it. A flashlight beam cuts through the trees close. Too close. They freeze, pressing into the shadows. Shadow crouches beside Elena, utterly still. The beam sweeps past, pauses, returns. A figure emerges from the snow. Male, armed, radio crackling at his belt. Got tracks here. Fresh. 2 people, and is that a wolf? The radio squawks. Pursue. Volkov wants him alive, but use whatever force necessary. The man raises his weapon, advancing toward their hiding place. Elena's hand finds a rock on the frozen ground. It's not much, but it's something. Then Shadow moves. Before Elena can stop him, the wolf lunges from the thicket, a black blur in the swirling snow. He hits the man chest high, knocking him backward. The gun fires wild, the shot echoing through the forest. The man screams, trying to fight off 150 pounds protective fury. Shadow doesn't bite to kill, just pins him, keeps him down. Snarling warnings. Run! Elena yells to Dr. Thorne. They sprint through the forest, leaving the downed man behind. More shouts erupt behind them, multiple pursuers now. Elena can hear Shadow following, his paws barely making sound on the snow. Dr. Thorne's car is exactly where she said, a Subaru, covered in snow but running. They pile in, Shadow barely fitting in the back seat. Dr. Thorne guns the engine, wheels spinning before finding purchase. Headlights appear in the rearview mirror. The pursuit isn't over. Dr. Thorne drives like someone familiar with mountain roads in bad weather, taking turns fast but controlled. The Subaru fishtails beholds. Behind them, the larger vehicles struggle, their weight working against them. There's a Forest Service road about 2 miles ahead. Dr. Thorne says, voice tight with concentration. Unmaintained in winter. They won't be able to follow. She takes the turn at the last possible second, the Subaru sliding sideways before straightening. The pursuing vehicles overshoot, brake lights flaring as they try to reverse. The Forest Service road is barely visible under the snow, more of a suggestion than an actual path. Dr. Thorne navigates by instinct and memory, pushing the car through drifts that threaten to swallow it. After 20 minutes of white-nickel driving, they emerge onto a paved highway. Dr. Thorne finally slows, breathing hard. That was closer than I'd like, she says. Elena can only nod, adrenaline still flooding her system. Shadow whines from the back seat, and she reaches back to reassure him. Where are we going? She asks. Missoula, I have a safe place there. Somewhere Volkov won't think to look. We can regroup, contact Morrison, figure out our next move. Dr. Thorne glances at Elena. You're not going back to that cabin, you know. Not until this is resolved. I know. Elena feels a pang of loss. Her home, her life, all of it suspended until she can find a way through this nightmare. But she's not alone anymore. She has allies now. Dr. Thorne, Sheriff Hendricks, potentially David Morrison. And she has Shadow, loyal and fierce. The storm continues as they drive, snow swirling in the headlights. Behind them, somewhere in the darkness, Volkov's people and Dr. Chen's team are still searching, still hunting. But Elena has bought herself time. Time to plan, to strategize, to find the leverage she needs. The fight for her grandfather's legacy has only just begun. Dr. Thorne's safe house is a modest craftsman bungalow on the outskirts of Missoula, tucked behind overgrown lilacs and a fence that's seen better days. It doesn't look like much, but Elena understands immediately why it's safe. It's the kind of place no one notices, the kind of neighborhood where people mind their own business. Inside, Dr. Thorne makes coffee while Elena finally allows herself to collapse on the couch. Shadow curls at her feet, exhausted. Every muscle in Elena's body aches. She hasn't slept in over 30 hours, hasn't eaten a real meal in longer than that. Showers down the hall, Dr. Thorne says, handing her the coffee. Clean clothes in the bedroom. You should rest. But Elena can't rest. Not yet. She pulls out her phone, checking for signal. Full bars. The video she recorded in the vault is still queued, timer counting down. 68 hours until it auto-uploads to every news organization and law enforcement agency she could think of. Her insurance policy, her leverage. Dr. Thorne sits across from her. I reached out to David Morrison. He's flying in tomorrow morning. He wants to meet with you, review the documents, assess the legal situation. What did you tell him? The truth, that you've discovered assets worth nearly $1 billion, that you're being pursued by private interests and federal agents, and that you need representation immediately. What did he say? Dr. Thorne smiles. He said his father would want him to help, that the Guardian protected these assets for 80 years, and the least he could do is protect the Guardian's heir for a few weeks. Elena feels tears prick her eyes. She's so tired of carrying this alone, so grateful to have someone willing to share the burden. There's something else, Dr. Thorne continues. I did some preliminary research on the bonds and stocks you photographed. Elena, some of those certificates represent founding shares in companies that are now worth, well, astronomical amounts. If they're legitimate, if they can be authenticated, you're not just wealthy. You're one of the wealthiest individuals in the country. The number is too big to process. Elena has spent 3 years living on less than $15,000 a year, chopping her own wood, hunting her own food. The idea of having billions, not millions, billions, feels absurd. I don't want to be wealthy, she says quietly. I want to honor my grandfather. I want these assets to do what they were meant to do. Then we make sure that's part of the settlement. We establish a foundation, something that can manage the assets and use them for good. Education, infrastructure, rebuilding communities. The original purpose of enduring trust, finally fulfilled. It's perfect. It's exactly what Elena wants. But first, they have to survive long enough to make it happen. The next morning, David Morrison arrives at dawn. He's younger than Elena expected, mid-40s, sharp suit, briefcase that probably costs more than her truck. But his eyes are kind, and when he shakes her hand, his grip is firm and genuine. Mrs. Cordova, I'm honored to meet you. My father spoke of Tomas Rivera often, called him the bravest man he ever knew. They sit at the kitchen table, Elena spreading out all the documents she's collected. Morrison examines them carefully, taking notes, asking questions. His legal mind works through complexities with impressive speed. After 2 hours, he sits back. This is extraordinary and extraordinarily complicated, but I think we can build a case. The key is establishing clear chain of custody from the original guardians to you. Your grandfather's letter helps. The operation documents help. We need to prove that Tomas Rivera was legally designated to protect these assets and that you're his legitimate heir. How long will that take? Months. Maybe a year if we're lucky. But there's a faster way. Morrison pulls out his laptop, opens a file. I've already drafted a proposal. We present it to the Department of Defense, to the Justice Department, to Treasury. We offer them a deal. We'll work within their framework, keep the operation classified, avoid any public scandal. In exchange, they acknowledge your legal claim and facilitate the transfer of assets into a foundation controlled by you. Why would they agree? Because the alternative is worse. If this goes public, and that video you recorded ensures it will if something happens to you, they face congressional hearings, investigations, questions about why they abandoned classified assets for 80 years. Every politician will want a piece of this story. It'll be a nightmare. Elena considers. So we're threatening them. We're giving them an out, a quiet resolution that serves everyone's interests. You get to honor your grandfather and do good with the money. They get to avoid a scandal. It's not perfect, but it's pragmatic. Before Elena can respond, her phone buzzes. A text from Sheriff Hendricks. Call me. Urgent. She dials immediately. Tom answers on the first ring. Elena, Volkov knows where you are. One of Dr. Thorne's colleagues at the university. He got to her, bribed or threatened her. She gave up the safe house address. Elena's blood runs cold. How long do we have? Maybe an hour. Maybe less. You need to move now. Morrison is already on his feet, gathering documents. Dr. Thorne grabs her keys. But Elena hesitates, something crystallizing in her mind. She's tired of running, tired of being hunted. And she has leverage now. Morrison's proposal, the video insurance policy, the documentation proving everything. Maybe it's time to stop fleeing and start confronting. No, she says, we're not running anymore. Dr. Thorne turns. Elena, that's insane. Volkov's people are armed, dangerous. So am I, and I'm done letting him dictate terms. Elena looks at Morrison. That proposal you drafted, how fast can you get it to the right people? I can have it in front of the Deputy Secretary of Defense in 30 minutes. Why? Because we're going to force everyone to the table. Volkov, shun the government. Right here, right now. We settle this today. Morrison stares at her. That's actually brilliant. If we can get all parties in the same room, with legal representation present and a formal proposal on record, it stops being a treasure hunt and starts being a negotiation. Exactly. And negotiations have rules. Witnesses. Accountability. Dr. Thorne shakes her head admiringly. You sound like your grandfather. Tom said he never backed down from anything. Then let's make him proud. They work quickly. Morrison sends a proposal to his contacts in D.C., marked urgent, including just enough details to ensure it reaches the right desks immediately. Dr. Thorne contacts Dr. Chin directly, woman to woman, explaining that Elena is ready to discuss terms and that continued pursuit will only delay resolution. And Elena calls Sheriff Hendricks, tells him to bring every deputy he has to Dr. Thorne's address. Legal authority, witnesses, protection. You sure about this? Tom asks. No, but I'm doing it anyway. 30 minutes later, the first vehicle arrives. Sheriff Hendricks with 4 deputies, all armed, all looking grim but determined. Tom pulls Elena aside. Your grandfather will be terrified and proud in equal measure. That sounds about right. The next arrival is Dr. Chen's team. 3 black SUVs, government plates. Chun herself steps out, looking tired and frustrated. She approaches the house cautiously, hands visible. Elena meets her at the door. Dr. Chun, thank you for coming. Mrs. Cordova, I understand you want to talk. I want to settle this, properly, with lawyers and witnesses and accountability. Chen's expression softens slightly. That's all I've wanted from the beginning. The department doesn't want a public incident any more than you do. Then let's make sure there isn't one. Volkov arrives 10 minutes later, his convoy larger and more aggressive. 8 men, all armed, moving with military precision. Volkov himself is exactly what Elena expected, tall, broad, cold eyes that calculate everything. He stops at the property line, studying the scene. Sheriff's deputies on the porch, federal agents in the yard, lights on inside the house. This isn't the isolated confrontation he'd been expecting. Morrison steps out, briefcase in hand. Mr. Volkov, I'm David Morrison, representing Mrs. Cordova. We're convening a settlement meeting regarding the assets discovered in the Bitterroot Range. You're welcome to join us. With your lawyer. Volkov's jaw tightens. I don't need a lawyer. Then you're welcome to observe. But any attempt at intimidation or violence will be documented by law enforcement and used against you in subsequent legal proceedings. It's a power move, and everyone knows it. Volkov has been outmaneuvered. He can participate in a legal process, or he can leave. His only other option, violence, now carries consequences he can't afford. He signals his men to stand down. I'll listen. They gather in Dr. Thorne's living room. It's crowded, tense, surreal. Elena sits at the center, Morrison on one side, Dr. Thorne on the other. Sheriff Hendricks stands by the door. Dr. Chun and two federal attorneys sit across from them. Volkov leans against the far wall, arms crossed, radiating barely controlled anger. Shadow lies at Elena's feet, a reminder that she's not defenseless. Morrison opens his briefcase, distributes copies of the proposal. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here to resolve the status of assets discovered pursuant to World War II Operation Enduring Trust. My client, Mrs. Elena Cordova, is the legal heir to Tomas Rivera, one of 7 guardians designated to protect these assets. Dr. Chin interrupts. Those assets belong to the United States government. Do they? Morrison counters. The operation was classified beyond top secret and deliberately erased from official records. The guardians were abandoned by their superiors and left to protect the assets in perpetuity. When Mr. Rivera died, guardianship passed to his heir under both common law and the specific protocols outlined in the operation documents. He slides a document across the table. This is the original protocol. Section 7 states that in the event of a guardian's death, responsibility transfers to their designated successor or, in absence of designation, to their next of kin. One of the federal attorneys studies it. This protocol was never officially rescinded. Exactly, which means Mrs. Cordova has a legitimate legal claim. Volkov speaks for the first time. Legal claim or not, possession is 9/10 of the law. I know where the vaults are. I have the resources to secure them. And Mrs. Cordova has this. Morrison plays Elena's video on his laptop, the one showing the vault contents, her statement about auto-uploading to media and law enforcement. If anything happens to my client, this video releases automatically. Every news organization in the country will have proof of classified assets worth nearly $1 billion, proof of a government operation that abandoned them, proof of private contractors attempting to steal them. The scandal would be considerable. The room goes silent. Elena watches the realization dawn on everyone's faces. She's not helpless. She's not a victim. She's a player with real leverage. Dr. Chin leans back. What are you proposing? Morrison distributes another document. A foundation, the Enduring Trust Foundation, managed by Mrs. Cordova, with oversight from a board, including government representatives. The assets are transferred into the foundation, liquidated responsibly over time, and used for their original purpose, rebuilding infrastructure, supporting education, strengthening communities. Mrs. Cordova receives a management fee, reasonable, not excessive, and retains control over how the funds are deployed. The government gets credit for facilitating the process and ensures the money serves public good. Everyone wins. Except me, Volkov says. I've invested years and considerable resources tracking these assets. Morrison turns to him. Mr. Volkov, you have no legal claim whatsoever. But in the interest of settling this quickly and avoiding litigation, the Foundation could compensate you for your research expenses. Say, $5 million. A finder's fee, essentially. It's a pittance compared to what Volkov was hoping for, but it's more than he'll get if this goes to court. Elena watches him calculate, weighing options. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more incredible mountain stories like this one. Finally, Volkov nods. 10 million. 7 Morris encounters. And you sign a non-disclosure agreement. Done. Dr. Chun confers with her attorneys, then turns to Morrison. We need approval from Washington, but preliminarily, the department can accept these terms, provided the operation remains classified and Mrs. Cordova cooperates fully with our verification process. Agreed. It's happening. Elena can barely believe it. After days of running, of fear, of uncertainty, it's actually resolving. Not perfectly, but pragmatically, honorably. Morrison pulls out settlement documents, pre-drafted, just waiting for signatures. The federal attorneys review them carefully, making notes, requesting minor modifications. Volkov's lawyer, summoned by phone and arriving within the hour, does the same. By sunset, they have a framework. By midnight, they have signatures. By dawn, Elena Cordova is no longer a fugitive mountain woman protecting a secret. She's the founder and director of the Enduring Trust Foundation, responsible for managing nearly $900 million in assets for the public good. Section 8, the victory resolution achieved. 3 months later, Elena stands in her cabin. It's been repaired, restored, made whole again. The damage from Volkov's men has been erased. New windows, new door, everything as it was. But nothing is as it was. The cellar chamber is empty now, its contents carefully inventoried, authenticated, and transferred to secure facilities where they're being liquidated responsibly. The bonds and stocks have been validated. Some worth even more than projected, others less, but the total hovers right around $870 million. The mine vault has been sealed properly, a historic site now, protected by the Forest Service with plaques explaining its significance as part of classified World War II operation. Tourists will never know the full story, but historians do. Elena has kept very little for herself. A small salary as foundation director, $75,000 a year, enough to live comfortably but not extravagantly. The cabin and its surrounding 50 acres, legally transferred her ownership, and a few gold coins, kept as mementos of her grandfather. Everything else belongs to the foundation, and the foundation is working exactly as she'd hoped. The first grants have been distributed. Scholarships for students in rural Montana, infrastructure improvements for reservation communities, support for veterans programs. The kind of work that doesn't make headlines but changes lives. Dr. Thorne sits on the foundation board, along with David Morrison, Sheriff Hendricks, and 3 appointees from the Department of Defense who've proven surprisingly committed to honoring the Guardian's original intent. Dr. Chin visits occasionally, cordial now that the legal battles are settled. She's writing a book about Operation Enduring Trust, classified version for the department, sanitized version for eventual public release. She's promised to honor the Guardians properly, to make sure their service is remembered. Even Volkov has kept his word. He took his $7 million, signed the NDA, and disappeared into whatever wealthy people do with their time. Elena suspects he's already hunting for the next treasure, the next obsession. Some people can't stop searching. But Elena has found what she was searching for, even if she didn't know she was searching. Marcus's memory is honored here. His rock collection still lines the shelves, his tools in the shed, his field guides on the table. But now she can look at them without the crushing weight of grief. She can remember him with love instead of loss. Her grandfather's legacy is secured. The fortune he protected for 80 years is finally serving its purpose. She likes to imagine him somewhere, watching, satisfied that his granddaughter finished what he started. And Elena herself is transformed. She's no longer just surviving, moving through routines, avoiding risk. She's living, building, contributing. The foundation gives her purpose beyond the daily struggle of mountain life. She still chops wood, still checks trap lines in winter, still values the simplicity and honesty of her remote existence. But now it's a choice, not a prison. She could leave if she wanted. She could buy a house in town, hire help, make life easier. She chooses to stay because she loves it here, not because she has no other options. Shadow remains her constant companion, though he's getting older now, moving a little slower. Elena has started thinking about what happens when he's gone, whether she'll find another wolf or finally accept that what they had was unique, unrepeatable. But that's a worry for another day. Today, she has visitors. Tom Hendricks and his wife, bringing dinner. Dr. Thorne, driving up from Missoula with Foundation documents to review. A photographer from a university who wants to document the cabin for the historical record. Her home fills with voices, with laughter, with life. So different from the silent isolation of 3 years ago. Elena cooks elk stew, using her grandmother's recipe, and serves it with fresh bread from the bakery in Silverbrook. They eat together as the sun sets over the mountains, painting the peaks gold and purple. Shadow begs shamelessly for scraps. Tom tells stories about Tomas Rivera that Elena has never heard. Dr. Thorne shares progress reports on the Foundation's work. It's imperfect and beautiful, and exactly what Elena needed without knowing she needed it. After dinner, after her guests leave, Elena walks outside with Shadow. The night is clear, stars brilliant in the unpolluted sky. The temperature has dropped, but spring is coming. She can feel it in the air, smell it in the wind. She thinks about the journey that brought her here, the grief that nearly broke her, the wolf that saved her, the mystery that gave her purpose, the fortune that gave her power, the choice to honor rather than hoard. And she thinks about her grandfather's letter, the final line she's memorized, "I trust you to make the right choice. You've always been stronger than you knew. I hope I made you proud, abuelo," she whispers to the darkness. The mountain doesn't answer, but somehow she feels the response anyway. In the cold wind, in the distant howl of a wolf pack, in the solid ground beneath her feet, she made the right choice. She protected what mattered. And now she gets to live with the consequences, not as a burden, but as a gift. Elena Cordova returns to her cabin. Shadow at her heel, ready for whatever comes next. The fortune is settled. The legal battles are won. The threats are passed. But the real victory isn't the money or the foundation or the recognition. The real victory is standing here, in this place she loves, surrounded by the memory of people she's loved, doing work that matters, and finally, after years of merely surviving, truly living. The mountain taught her how to endure. The mystery taught her how to fight. And the choice taught her how to honor. That's worth more than any treasure buried in stone. Section 9, The New Life, Epilogue and Future. 1 year later, Elena stands at the new community center in Silverbrook, watching children run through halls that didn't exist 6 months ago. The Enduring Trust Foundation's first major construction project, a multi-purpose facility with a library, computer lab, meeting spaces, and gymnasium. The ribbon-cutting ceremony had been yesterday, attended by the governor, 2 senators, and more journalists than Elena was comfortable with. But today is quieter, just the community using the space, and that's what matters. A teenage girl approaches Elena shyly, clutching a book. "Mrs. Cordova, I got the scholarship. The Foundation scholarship. I'm going to college." Elena's throat tightens. "That's wonderful. What are you studying?" "Geology, like your husband did. I want to understand mountains the way he did." Elena blinks back tears. He would have loved that. He really would have. The girl smiles and hurries off to join her friends. Elena watches her go, thinking about Marcus, about how his passion for understanding the earth continues to the Foundation's education grants. Dr. Thorne finds her by the windows. "You've built something remarkable here." "We built it," Elena corrects. "I couldn't have done any of this alone." "True, but it was your courage that made it possible." Dr. Thorne pulls out her tablet, shows Elena the latest numbers. The Foundation's endowment has grown through careful investment. At current rates, we can sustain operations indefinitely. Your grandfather's fortune will keep helping people for generations. It's humbling and overwhelming and perfect. Elena had worried the money would run out, that they'd spend everything and have nothing left. But Morrison and the board had invested wisely, ensuring sustainability. "There's something else," Dr. Thorne continues. "I've been contacted by families of the other guardians. Chun, Davidson, Morrison, their descendants want to meet you. They want to honor their fathers properly, finally tell the stories that have been classified for so long." When? Next month, Washington, D.C. The Department of Defense is hosting a private ceremony, finally acknowledging Operation Enduring Trust and the Seven Guardians. It'll still be classified, but at least the families will know, will understand what their fathers sacrificed. Elena nods slowly. My grandfather would want that. Recognition, even if it's private. Will you speak at the ceremony? What would I say? The truth, that these men kept their oath, protected something valuable when it would have been easier to walk away or cash in, that honor and duty still matter, even when no one's watching. Elena thinks about it. Public speaking terrifies her, but for her grandfather, for the other guardians, she'll do it. I'll speak. That evening, Elena returns to the cabin. Shadow greets her at the door, tail wagging slowly. He's 14 now, ancient for a wolf, moving stiffly with arthritis. But his eyes are still bright, still watchful. She's made peace with the fact that he won't be with her much longer. Where he goes, she'll bury him on a ridge overlooking the cabin, next to the spot where Marcus's ashes are scattered. 2 guardians, watching over her still. Inside, the cabin is warm and welcoming. She's added a few comforts. Better insulation, a more efficient stove, solar panels for electricity. But it's still fundamentally the same space her grandfather built, the same home she shared with Marcus. Elena makes tea and sits by the window, watching the sunset. Her laptop is open with Foundation emails, grant applications to review, reports to read. The work never stops, but she doesn't mind. It gives her day structure and meaning. Her phone rings. Unknown number, but she answers anyway. Mrs. Cordova? This is Janet Morrison, David's sister. I wanted to thank you. Because of what you've done, we finally learned the truth about our father. We finally understand why he was so secretive, so burdened. It's brought our family closure. We didn't know we needed. Elena's voice is gentle. Your father was a hero. They all were. I know that now. Thank you for making sure the world knows it too, even if only a few people can ever be told. After she hangs up, Elena sits in the gathering darkness, feeling the weight of what she's accomplished. Not just a foundation, not just a legal victory, but this, giving families answers, honoring men who deserved recognition, completing a story that had been left unfinished for 80 years. Shadow pads over, rests his head on her knee. She scratches behind his ears, grateful for his presence, his companionship, his steadfast loyalty through everything. We did good, didn't we, boy? She murmurs. His tail thumps once against the floor. Agreement. The next morning brings fresh snow, a late spring storm that blankets the mountains in white. Elena bundles up and hikes the ridge with Shadow, moving slowly to accommodate his aging joints. They reach the high point where Marcus's ashes are scattered, where Elena plans to eventually bury Shadow. The view stretches for miles. Peaks and valleys, forests and meadows. A wilderness has been her home, her challenge, and her salvation. She thinks about the woman she was 3 years ago. Broken, grieving, barely surviving. She thinks about the woman she is now. Healed, purposeful, thriving. The transformation wasn't easy or quick. It required courage she didn't know she had. Required facing dangers she spent years avoiding. Required choosing honor over comfort, duty over ease. But standing here now, looking out over mountains that tested and tempered her, Elena knows she'd make the same choices again. Every difficult decision, every frightening moment, every sacrifice, they all led here, to this life she's built from the ruins of her old one. Shadow barks softly, drawing her attention to movement in the valley below. A wolf pack, young and strong, running through the snow. Shadow watches them with what Elena imagines is satisfaction. His kind, thriving, continuing. That's your legacy, she tells him. Just like the foundation is grandfather's legacy. We all leave something behind. What will her legacy be? The foundation, certainly. The communities it helps, the lives it changes. But also this, the example of a woman who refused to quit, who honored those who came before her, who turned tragedy into purpose. Maybe that's enough. Maybe that's more than enough. As they descend back toward the cabin, Elena's phone buzzes. A text from Dr. Thorne. New grant applications just came in. 47 students requesting scholarships. We can fund 32 of them. Your grandfather would be so proud. Elena smiles, typing back. He already is, and so am I. The cabin comes into view through the trees, smoke rising from the chimney. Home, not just a structure of logs and stone, but a symbol of everything she's fought for and protected. Her past, her present, her future, all contained in these walls. She'll stay here as long as Shadow's with her. After he's gone, she might split her time between the mountain and town. Make it easier to manage the Foundation's day-to-day operations. But she'll never leave completely. This place is part of her now, woven into her identity as surely as her grandfather's DNA. Elena Cordova enters her cabin, Shadow at her heel, ready for whatever tomorrow brings. The fortune is secured. The guardians are honored. The Foundation is thriving. The mountain stands eternal. And she, once broken, now whole, lives each day with purpose, with gratitude, with the knowledge that she kept faith with those who came before and paved the way for those who come after. That's the real treasure. Not the gold or the bonds or the money, but the chance to make a difference, to honor the past, to build the future, to transform suffering into service, loss into legacy, survival into something worth living for. The mountain taught her well. Part 4, The Reckoning, Final Chapter. Section 10, The Guardian Circle, Closure and Legacy. The private ceremony in Washington, D.C. takes place in a windowless room deep within the Pentagon. Elena had expected something grander, but she understands now. This is still classified, still secret. The recognition will be private, witnessed only by those who need to know. 23 people attend. The descendants of the 7 Guardians, a handful of Department of Defense officials with the appropriate clearances, and a 3-star general who oversees historical operations. Elena sits in the front row between Janet Morrison and Dr. Thorne. Around them are children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren of men who carried impossible secrets to their graves. A family reunion of sorts, bound not by blood but by shared legacy. The general stands at the podium, his voice measured and formal. For 80 years, 7 men carried the burden of Operation Enduring Trust. They were asked to guard assets worth billions, to maintain absolute secrecy, to trust that their sacrifice mattered even when they received no recognition, no support, no confirmation that anyone remembered. He pauses, looking at the gathered families. They kept their oath, every single one of them. Tomas Rivera, James Chun, Robert Davidson, Henry Morrison, William Tucker, Frank Castellano, and Joseph Brennan. 7 guardians who chose honor over wealth, duty over comfort, silence over glory. The general nods to an aide, who unveils 7 plaques mounted on a polished wooden board. Each bears a guardian's name, dates of service, and a simple inscription. He kept faith. Elena's vision blurs. She can barely see her grandfather's name through the tears, but she doesn't need to see it. She knows it's there, finally acknowledged, finally honored. We cannot give them the recognition they deserved in life. The general continues. But we can ensure their families know the truth, that these men were patriots in the truest sense, that their service mattered, that we remember. One by one, the families are called forward to receive the plaques. When Elena's name is spoken, she stands on shaking legs and walks the podium. The general hands her the plaque, heavy, solid, real, and salutes. Elena returns the salute awkwardly, then clutches the plaque to her chest. She can feel her grandfather's presence somehow, a warmth that has nothing to do with the room's temperature. After the ceremony, the families gather informally. Stories are shared, photographs exchanged, connections made. Elena learns that Robert Davidson's granddaughter is a teacher in Wyoming, using foundation grants to buy supplies for her classroom. That Henry Morrison's great-grandson serves in the Marines, following a family tradition of service. These people are her extended family now, bound by what their ancestors protected. They exchange contact information, make promises to stay in touch, to support each other the way their forebears supported each other across decades of silence. Dr. Sarachin pulls Elena aside, her expression thoughtful. My father's cash was the first to be recovered, back in 2003. I was the agent assigned to investigate it. I spent 20 years not knowing I was searching for my own father's legacy. Does it bother you that he never told you? It did, but now I understand. He was protecting me from the burden, from the danger, just like your grandfather protected you by not telling you until after he was gone. Sarah touches the plaque in Elena's hands. They gave us the choice to walk away or step forward. That's a gift, even if it doesn't feel like one. Elena nods slowly. My grandfather wrote that he trusted me to make the right choice. That terrified me at first, but now I'm grateful. He believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. The flight back to Montana gives Elena time to process everything. She holds the plaque in her lap the entire way, running her fingers over the engraved letters of her grandfather's name. He kept faith. 3 words that capture 80 years of sacrifice. 3 words that now define her responsibility as well. When she finally returns to the cabin, Shadow greets her with his usual enthusiasm, though his movements are slower than ever. Elena kneels beside him, wrapping her arms around his neck. We went to Washington, she tells him. They honored Abuelo, finally gave him the recognition he earned. Shadow's tail wags weakly. He understands tone, if not words, senses that something important happened. Elena hangs the plaque above the fireplace, next to the photograph of her grandfather in his uniform and the knife that belonged to Marcus. 3 generations, 3 legacies, all represented on one wall. She steps back, studying the arrangement. This cabin has become a museum of sorts, a keeper of stories that must be remembered even if they can't be widely shared. The next morning brings news that changes everything. Dr. Thorne calls at dawn, her voice tight with urgency. Elena, turn on the news. Any channel. Elena fumbles for her laptop, pulls up a news website. The headline makes her stomach drop. Classified World War II operation revealed. $1 billion asset cache discovered in Montana mountains. Someone leaked the story. Despite the NDAs, despite the classification, despite everything, it's public. Elena's phone explodes with notifications. Calls from journalists, emails from documentary producers, messages from people claiming to be distant relatives who deserve a share of the fortune. The quiet life she fought to preserve is gone in an instant. How did this happen? She asked Dr. Thorne. We don't know yet, but Elena, you need to prepare. The media circus is coming, and it's going to be intense. For 3 days, Elena doesn't leave the cabin. Journalists camp at the bottom of her access road. Kept back by sheriff's deputies, but persistent. Helicopters fly overhead, filming the property. Her photo appears in newspapers and websites around the world. The $1 billion mountain woman. Guardian's heir reveals World War II secret. From poverty to unimaginable wealth. The stories are sensational, mostly inaccurate, focus on the money rather than the purpose. Elena refuses all interview requests, issues a brief statement through Morrison's law firm explaining that the assets are held in trust for public good, that she personally profits very little. But nuance doesn't sell. The narrative that emerges is a reclusive widow who stumbled onto a fortune and now controls nearly $1 billion. The truth, that she fought to honor her grandfather's legacy, that she chose service over wealth, that she built a foundation to help communities, gets lost in the spectacle. On the 4th day, Elena hikes to the ridge with Shadow, needing space from the chaos below. They sit together overlooking the valley, watching storm clouds gather over the distant peaks. I wanted to do this quietly, she tells the wolf. Just help people without all this attention. Shadow leans against her, offering wordless comfort. Then her phone rings. Morrison's number. The leak came from inside the Department of Defense. He says without preamble. A mid-level bureaucrat who thought the public deserved to know. He's been fired, but the damage is done. Can we unring this bell? No, but we can control the narrative going forward. I'm arranging a press conference. 1 interview, comprehensive, with a journalist we trust. You tell your story properly, on your terms. Then we shut it down, refer all future inquiries to the Foundation's media office. Elena considers. She hates the idea of more exposure, but Morrison's right. Better 1 thorough interview than 1,000 speculative stories. Set it up. The interview takes place 2 weeks later, conducted by a respected journalist who'd covered military history for decades. Elena sits in her cabin, Shadow at her feet, and tells a complete story. Her grandfather's guardianship, the discovery, the legal battle, the foundation, the ceremony honoring the guardians. She speaks about loss and purpose, about honoring the past while building the future. She shows the plaque above her fireplace, reads her grandfather's letter, explains why she chose service over personal wealth. The journalist asks the question Elena knew was coming. Do you regret finding the fortune? Your life would be simpler if that cellar wall had stayed sealed. Elena considers carefully. Simple isn't the same as meaningful. My life before was simple. I survived, I endured, I got through each day. Now my life has purpose. I'm honoring people I loved. I'm helping communities that need it. That's worth the complications. When the interview airs, the response surprises her. The sensational stories don't disappear entirely, but they're balanced now by understanding. People see her not as a fortune hunter, but as someone trying to do right by a difficult inheritance. The foundation receives a flood of donations. People inspired by the Guardian story want to contribute to the work. The endowment grows beyond what the original assets provided, and slowly, gradually, the media attention fades. Elena's story becomes old news, replaced by fresher scandals and newer mysteries. Life returns to something approaching normal, though it's a new normal, one where Elena splits her time between a mountain cabin and a small office in Missoula, where she's recognized occasionally but mostly left alone, where the foundation operates with professional staff and established procedures. 5 months after the leak, Elena sits on her porch watching the first snow of winter fall. Shadow lies beside her, breathing slowly. He's been declining rapidly, and they both know his time is coming. You've been the best friend, she tells him softly. Carried me through the hardest years. Kept me safe when danger came. You're a guardian too, you know, just like Abuelo. Shadow's tail moves once, a final acknowledgement. That night, he passes peacefully in his sleep by the fire. Elena holds him as he goes, whispering thanks and love, promising to bury him on the ridge where he can watch over the mountains he protected. The grief is sharp but clean. Shadow lived fully, loved fiercely, served faithfully. What more could anyone ask? Elena buries him at sunrise, placing stones to mark the spot. She plants a young pine beside the grave. In 20 years, it will be tall enough to shade the entire ridge. Standing there alone, she thinks about all she's lost and all she's gained. Marcus, her grandfather, Shadow, all gone now. But their legacies remain woven into the foundation's work, into the lives changed, into communities strengthened. And Elena remains, no longer broken, no longer just surviving. She's become what her grandfather always believed she could be, a guardian in her own right, protecting not buried treasure but living purpose. The mountain stretches before her, eternal and magnificent. She's part of it now, part of its story, part of its strength. Elena Cordova descends from the ridge, ready to face whatever comes next. The fortune is secured. The guardians are honored. The foundation thrives. The story is complete, but life continues, and she's finally, truly ready to live it.